Hey YouTube, welcome back to Tinker with Tools. Tonight we're going to be comparing two Makita rear handle circular saws. So let's go ahead and get right into that on Tinker with Tools. Now, if you're anything like me, you grew up using a sidewinder circular saw, typically going to be blade right, and that was what was commonplace for me growing up. And so when I started getting into tools, that's what I ended up getting. My first one was a Bosch sidewinder 7 1/4 blade right, but there are limitations to a sidewinder circular saw. Because the motor is direct drive to the blade, there are some torque limitations where they just can't produce or output as much power and torque, especially for more demanding tasks. One of the main innovations that happened over 100 years ago was going to be the worm drive circular saw, where instead of being in line with the blade, the motor is actually moved to the back and through a set of gears drives the motor. With those gears, they were able to achieve greater amounts of torque, and so it really is well suited for more demanding tasks. So then about 7 years ago, Makita actually came out with this, which at the time was the world's first cordless rear handle circular saw. Now, this is not a worm drive saw, and it's not a sidewinder saw. The motor is mostly in line with the blade or right there with the blade, but it still uses a set of gears to be able to drive worm drive-like performance. Now, this is on the Makita LXT platform, and it is an X2 variation of their LXT platform, meaning you are going to have actually two of their LXT batteries in here to run and power the saw. And this became an increasingly popular saw because it offered good enough performance that it allowed you to cut the cord. I actually picked this up over a year ago now. It was part of a Black Friday special where they were running this saw for $249 in a kit, but then they also gave you an additional 2 batteries with it. So you ended up with 4 batteries, the charger, and the saw for $249. That was too good of a deal for me to pass up, and so this became the first rear handle circular saw that I used. Now, rear handle circular saws are going to be heavier than your traditional, more compact blade right 7 1/4 circular saw, but it is extremely well suited for those more demanding tasks. Shortly thereafter, the deal popped up on this saw. Now, this is the XGT saw, and this is going to be on their XGT 40 volt platform. And so because of that, this is actually just a single battery saw. Now, on the surface, these two saws are very similar. There's a ton of similarities before them, and you might think that they actually perform exactly the same as well. That's not actually the truth. We're going to go through a bunch of different categories, comparing and contrasting the saws, telling you where they're most similar and where they differ and what the difference is, so you can hopefully judge the performance and see which one is going to be right for you. Now, to begin with, the biggest difference between these two saws is going to be the battery platform that they're on. As I mentioned, the LXT version is going to be running 2 of their LXT batteries, and while you don't need to use 2 of the exact same size batteries, as soon as the lower amp hour battery drains, the saw will stop working until you put a new battery in. Now, XGT, on the other hand, just requires 1 battery, and when you buy it in a kit, it actually comes with one of their 4 amp hour XGT batteries. Now, while it does just require a single battery, they do not quote as much runtime on that single battery as what you're getting on this saw with its dual batteries. So in terms of battery platform, while one of these 4 amp hour batteries is lower than the standard pricing of 2 of the LXT batteries, as soon as you need to buy a second one of these batteries, the value proposition does start to erode away a little bit in terms of what you're getting with that. Now, in terms of build quality, that's where I think these two saws are going to be most similar. As with most of Makita's more premium tools, I think everything on here is fairly top-notch and well-made. They do use some nice materials, so you got a magnesium base plate on both. I think you're going to be getting very identical build quality in each of these. It's just going to be a matter of some little differences because of the age difference of the tools, and then also the single battery versus the dual battery platform. All right, so then when it comes to design and ergonomics, we'll kind of cover what's the same between the tools. It is a great saw to use because it just kind of feels pretty balanced. All the controls are nice to use and secure well, and the same goes for the XGT. The differences in design, in my opinion, are going to come down mostly to the battery compartment and the rafter hook placement. When you have a battery installed on this saw, you can actually install it and take it out without having to do anything with the rafter hook. When you come over to the XGT saw, you actually cannot get both batteries in with the rafter hook. You do need to move it out of the way and then you can go ahead and put in both batteries. One of the other things that happens because of the X2 platform, in my opinion, there is no on-tool storage for the wrench to be able to change the blade. On the XGT, because they don't have to have that open platform for both batteries, they do allow you to have the on-tool storage right here at the back. Now, cutting capacity is going to be identical on these in terms of depth of cut. They're both 2 9/16 inch. Where you are going to see a difference is in the degrees of bevel that you can have. The LXT tops out at 53 degrees. The XGT tops out at 56 degrees. If I'm being honest, for the majority of the stuff I do, that is not going to be a deal killer. Just know that you are getting more from that saw. All right, now in terms of additional features, both of the tools feature technology that is designed to help keep dust out and keep the tool working. Both saws actually have it. Another feature that they both have is that it will kind of ramp up the speed of the motor if it senses that it needs more torque and more power. In terms of overall safety features, both of them feature a blade brake. I think it might be a little bit snappier on the LXT, but both of them stop pretty quickly. Okay, so now we're going to get to the power and performance category. Now on the LXT, they are quoting 5,100 RPMs for the blade speed of the saw. On the XGT, it's 6,400 RPMs. We're going to go ahead now and show you the actual performance testing of the two saws. Now, I have not seen the actual times of the testing yet, but I can tell you from using them that it became pretty noticeable that the XGT saw felt like it had more power, and I was able to do cuts a little bit quicker using this, especially on the longer rip cut. I don't think it matters as much on the cross cuts, but on the rip cuts especially, it felt like you could push this saw harder and cut faster, and with that extra blade speed, it felt like it was moving through the wood faster. This one was by no means underpowered. I don't want to make it seem like that, but it definitely didn't feel as powerful as here. Now the second piece of performance is going to be runtime. We hinted at it earlier when we said that you just can't get around the fact that there's more watt hours on this battery than what you're going to be getting on a single 4.0 battery here. And so you are going to be getting quoted significantly more cuts here. On the XGT, they're quoting 375 cross cuts in 2x4 material. On the LXT, that is going to be 558 quoted cross cuts in 2x4 material. 200 extra cuts of 2x4 is going to be a substantial difference in runtime. All right, and then it comes down to value for money. Now, first off, we're going to be discussing the actual kitted price of the saws at standard with no sales on them. This saw goes for $399 with the dual bay charger and two 5.0 batteries, and the saw, $399. Over here you are at $449 for the XGT rear handle saw with a 4 amp hour battery and the single charger. XGT carries a premium over LXT in just about every category. Now obviously you only need one battery to run this saw, but with that battery not giving you as much runtime as what you're getting out of this saw, it makes that value proposition feel even less. Purely value standpoint, the LXT saw is going to be where it's at. Past Christmas and even right now at Home Depot, this one is actually going for $299 with that same promotion where you get the kit and then you also get the 2 free batteries. It's not quite as good as the $249 that I got it for a year and a half ago, but getting it for $299 is significantly better considering this one is actually not really on sale right now and you're going to be paying full price for this saw. All right, so now that brings us more to the conclusion. You really can't go wrong with either one of these saws. I absolutely love both of them. I've held off making this video for a while because I wanted to use each one of them for a time. Like I said, I've had this one over a year now. I think this one's even nearing a year that I've had it. And so having both of them for a while, now obviously you're getting less runtime and speed, but it is going to be lighter on the saw. So you do shed some weight by going with the XGT. The power and performance also on the XGT is a noticeable difference, and I think it'll have shown in the times. In person, this was definitely the more powerful saw. Now I know it's not the most powerful saw on the market because I have another one sitting right over here that's going to get tested perhaps in the next couple of months, and that one feels like it's in a different power class than this saw even. So I know it's not the most powerful one out there, but I think it gives you enough performance and not feel like you're getting left behind. The last thing for me that really substantially differentiates these two is just how easy it is to change the battery on this one compared to this one and having to flip out that rafter hook. Now obviously you can take the rafter hook off, so if that's not something you use, I guess then maybe take it off and then you don't have that difficulty. But I just like the fact that with this saw, everything you need is right here. You got onboard wrench storage. So when it comes down to it, if I could only buy one of these saws, this one is the winner for me, even though I do like both the saws. If I decide to sell one of them, it will not be the XGT, it will be the LXT that I will be selling or giving to someone else. And that is, I think, the clear indication of where my preference is when it comes to these two saws. Now I get that value does play a role. I don't think this is a bad saw. At this point, I think it is an aging saw, and I think that's where when you start talking about where other companies stack up power and performance wise, this saw was the first to market. It's a 7 to 8 year old model at this point, and that does start to show in the tool world just like it does with other types of tools like drills. Newer tools come out with more power and more performance, newer technologies, and I think that's what you're seeing here is they've just refined it a little bit and improved upon it. But you really can't go wrong with either saw, especially if you get a good deal on this one. Let me know what you think down in the comments below. If you have either one of these saws, or even if you have both, let me know which one you prefer and why. And if you don't like either one of these saws, let me know which rear handle circular saw or which circular saw in general you choose to go with. If you liked the video, hit that like button, and if you haven't already, please consider subscribing. As always, I thank you for your support, and until next time, this has been Tinker with Tools.